you right here at the main stage. Right now we have another great speaker. He's an author. He's been all over the world. Everyone knows him. Ladies and gentlemen, talking about the different forms of consumption, please welcome Mr. Ed Rosenthal.
See if that's a little bit better for you right there.
That's great. Everybody hear me now? Obviously it isn't a Verizon. I'm going to be talking today about a subject that I don't usually talk a lot about, but actually that has been very dear to me as, well, let me explain it. That, you know, in my early 20s I started experimenting with marijuana, but at the end of that decade I found out that my experiments, I just wasn't sure about it, and my experiments had to continue. And another 10 years went by, and I just wasn't sure. I just had to keep experimenting with it. And then at some point over my lifetime, I realized that I was in a longitudinal experiment, seeing just how much cannabis one human could consume. And I plan to write that report up after I'm dead. So, but they did ask me to talk a little bit about consumption. So everybody get out a joint. No, I'm just kidding. So, anyway, so you know that all of the cannabinoids, all of the terpenes, all of the stuff that gets you high or reacts with you medically is found in the trichomes. And those are little glands that are found on the leaf, and the amount of cannabinoids and terpenes that are found depend on several things, aside from the genetics. And that includes the amount of UVB light that the plants get, which increases both THC and most of the terpenes, and also, oh, that sounds better, and also, it also increases the amount of, also more intense light will increase the amount of terpenes and cannabinoids found in these trichomes. So here's another look at the trichomes. So, you know, they say that tobacco is just a carrier for nicotine, and in a way, cannabis is just a method of introduction of THC and cannabinoids. So these trichomes, when you smoke a joint, that's really what you're not really getting much from the vegetation. But all of the odors and all of the psychological effects come from the contents of these trichomes. And the caps of those trichomes fill up as the plant matures. And so you want to make sure that all your trichome caps are filled before you harvest. And you can look at that using a 6 or 8x photographer's loupe or larger microscope. Oh, sorry. So the first first concentrate that you might want to get from marijuana would be harvesting just the trichomes from the dried bud. And one way to do that would be by using a screen. This is another picture of, well, this is a pollinator. This was a mechanized screen made by Mila Jenkins and Jansen in Holland and used all over the world. But I want to show you this is a little video of making kief. There's the kief ready to smoke. It's pretty cool, and you know, kief is really out of favor commercially right now. People don't really think that it's, you know, the most powerful thing, but it's really very pleasant to put in a pipe, or to put a foundation of bud in a pipe and put that on top of it, and it's much more concentrated than bud, and you see how easy it is to make. So let's hear it for kief. For many people, this was the first, older people, this was the first concentrate that they ever saw. And it was like a revelation to them. And some of them got it the first time that they started using a grinder that had a screen in it, and the kief came out of the screen. So, okay, well, then the next, I'm going from the simplest to more complex. So I don't know whether this is actually more complex or same level of complexity, but let's say you took a bucket and then you put grass in the bucket and dry ice in the bucket, and then you put a screen on top of the bucket, and then you started shaking the bucket. And in about 30 seconds, for instance, if you had a table, such as this one, you start at one end, and as you shake, you move along the table, and the resulting material goes from totally blonde to almost green. And that fairly blonde stuff, the first stuff that comes out, that's actually still to this day my favorite concentrate. Dry ice hash. There's nothing like it. And some of the reasons for that is it's not being fiddled with. It's just, you're just straining it out. So nobody's messing with the gland itself. So all the terpenes stay in the gland because, you know, the glands, the terpenes tend to evaporate as the temperature gets higher. But with dry ice, the temperature isn't getting higher at all. So you're not losing any terpenes. So it tastes like some of the freshest, most beautiful cannabis that you can smoke. I highly recommend it. And I know that these things are a little out of favor right now, but once you try it, you'll see that it has a real enjoyment to it. If you're trying to get totally zonked out as quickly as possible so that you have no thoughts or something like that, this isn't a good product for it. But if you really want to enjoy it and realize how much you're enjoying life, this is something really good to try. So that's another picture of it. So, especially if you're growing outdoors, you might have some really resonant plants. And you might be inclined to follow the traditions that went on for thousands of years when people collected hashish by hand, by taking the plants and running their hands over the tops of the leaves like this. And as they did it, as you can see in the second picture there, the glands start collecting on your hands, and then you can rub them off into a ball, and that's some of the fabled hand-rubbed hashish of Nepal. And you can do it in your own backyard. Isn't that great? Now, you want to know something? I was in Nepal, and the Nepalese can't do it because they have had a government that has a genocidal war on marijuana for the last 30 years. So people your age have no familiarity with marijuana at all, because it hasn't been part of their lives. It's been driven from the land. And when I was there and purchased some, I purchased it from some person who, I don't know their exact age, but they were old, really old and decrepit. And the reason the old and the decrepit was selling it is because it was too much bother for the Nepalese police to arrest them. So you would be following and carrying on this 2,000-year-old tradition if you tried to do this. The hash is wonderful. It's so fresh, and all the terpenes are there, and they haven't had time to evaporate or anything. You put that in a pipe, it's great. It's just great. Once again, can't be hard to dab it. So, next thing I want to talk about is water hash. Now, in fact, I have a brand of pre-rolls that are sold in California, and the actual joint consists of cannabis and pre-rolls and water hash. And the water hash is to bring the cannabis up to a higher THC level, and to have it consistent all the time, so that when you smoke the joint today and you smoke it 2 weeks from now, you know what you're getting, and it will be consistent. So we use water hash to do it. And one of the reasons why I like water hash is there are no chemicals in water hash. Except, I mean, water is a chemical, but let's vote that water isn't considered a chemical for this, okay? Okay, so there are no chemicals in it, and I'll show you the process. This is one process. There are dozens of processes of this, but this is a process using fresh leaf. And so you can take the fresh leaf, you sort of break it up, and then you put it in ice water, and in the ice water you beat it in the ice water, and then you have the soup that has all the glands in it. And the ice water helps the glands break off from the leaf and the vegetative material because it sort of freezes it, and so it makes it brittle. So and then it goes through several bags and filters, and it comes out with this, and then it's dry, and these are the bags. This is if you were doing a larger amount of it, you might use a barrel, or you might use a cement mixer, or you could get larger and larger. Well, if you're doing a couple of acres, what do you want to do? A barrel at a time? The fellow was laughing. Okay. And this is how it's used. And water hash is really good in a pipe. If you have a high quality water hash, you can dab with it, but usually it's not quite as high. It doesn't have as much THC as you want for that. So they're basically, all of the sheet, what I call sheet concentrates that you might see on a piece of paper. Those are all made either from BHO, which is butane, or another petroleum, using petroleum gas, some sort of petroleum gas, such as butane, propane, or there are other esoteric ones that bring out different qualities, and dissolving the THC in the gas as it liquefies, and then as it's liquid, and then let it go back to a gaseous state, and the cannabinoids drop out of it. And you know, there are a lot of different varieties of this now, and you know, we could get into it, but generally these are all of these are smoked in a rig of one sort or another, and that I'll show you that in a minute. The other group is CO2, and CO2, you know, it's a gas found in the air, 380 parts per million right now, or 400 parts per million, and it's the same gas that's used in grow rooms at 1,200 to 1,500 parts per million, and there's different ways to use it. There's a critical and a subcritical. It depends whether it's used in a liquid state or a non-liquid state, but once again, it dissolves the THC and other cannabinoids, and then as it evaporates, it leaves them behind as a residue. Here are some examples of it. And you know, there's been a lot of discussion about the safety of butane concentrates, but as that discussion has taken place, people have found, inventors have found better and better ways to remove the butane from the product. And just think, if you're using a cigarette lighter to light a joint, you're probably inhaling a whole bunch of butane. So it can't be that harmful. By the way, butane itself does not affect the atmosphere. So this is supposed to be about different ways of using concentrates. So one way to use concentrates, I'm going to show you some old devices that they were used. This was a vapor box that really, this was your grandfather's vapor pen. This product was going to overtake the world. It was a volcano. It made a big bag, and I had a party one year down in San Francisco. Actually, I rented a hall that was actually owned by the city of San Francisco, and had this party there. And we had these bags, these long type turkey bags that we filled up. They were 15 feet high, filled with this and going around. And they were fun for a while. But you know, time marches on, and so do inventions. And it went from that to this, and now to dabbing. And here's, how many people don't know how to dab? Okay, here we go. This stuff, whatever it is, it tends to be either oily or sticky. So you use some sort of stick to pick it up. A lot of people use things like dab spoons, and sometimes I use toothpicks. You know, toothpicks are disposable and recyclable, so come in very handy. Okay, then you get it on the stick. There it is on the stick. Come on, isn't that a great photo? Dab on a stick. And then that stick is placed in the middle of the top of that pipe that has a sort of a specialized bowl this is for you. You're the only one who raised your hand. This is for you. Okay? Okay. So then you take that dab stick and you put it in the middle of that bowl that you see there that has already been preheated using either a propane torch or the newer ones which are electrically heated using either a battery or a cord. And then it's inhaled. This is another example of it. This is an electric one, so that you don't have to preheat it. It's already heated. You put the dab stick in, the material immediately begins to evaporate into fumes, and you inhale it. And as soon as you inhale it, you should remember to exhale it, because if you don't, you'll start coughing and bring up all of that material that you've been trying to get out of your lungs for years and years. This is an example of the actual dab on the actual bowl before it has been melted. This photograph is hard to take if you have a heated bowl, because the dab immediately melts as soon as it hits it. Here, now I'm going to show you some other variations on this. This is clear, and there are a number of different versions of clear. There's one that no matter how it's made, it goes through a carbon filtration, and it comes out really clear. It has very few terpenes in it. This is a clear made from jack. Clear on a stick. Here is rosin. Now, rosin is the newest thing. It isn't even in my book, it's so new. So, and the way that you make, the way rosin is made is that marijuana bud is heated and pressed, and when it's heated and pressed, the THC evaporates, and it just evaporates for a moment. So it evaporates outside of the bud and the bud part that's being heated onto the paper. And there are various tools that are made for doing this that range from like $200 up, although people do it with an iron as well. It's very easy to do it with an iron if you have one that has good temperature control, about 340 degrees. So this shows a little bit about how it was made, how it's made. So anyway, rosin is very interesting because there are no chemicals or anything with it, and it's been heated, but the terpenes, even though they've evaporated, they had nowhere to go. So then they get caught in the THC, which is precipitating. So it has it has a lot of terpenes in it. There's the bud, there's the terpene, there's the rosin around it. How it's used, same way. Now edibles. Well, who here hasn't had an edible? Okay, well, first of all, I want to mention that not everybody likes edibles, and it may be that there's a certain chemical change that happens when edibles go through the intestinal system, and the cannabinoids change a little different, and you get a different version of THC when it comes out of your digestive system. So you might not like that high as much, or you might find it uncomfortable. But let's say you're not in that group. Then I have several pieces of advice for you. This is a personal prejudice, actually. You know, a lot of people put edibles into entrees, you know, to the main dish, and then your cooking was so good that people want a second portion. I see here that some of the people may have experienced this. So I highly advise that you do portion control. And desserts are a very good way to do portion control. And I'm going to give you a magic way to do portion control. You've made these brownies, right? And they're so good that everybody wants a second brownie. but they can have a brownie that is not reinforced with marijuana. You could give them a plain brownie. You could make 2 groups of brownies. This he can eat and not get more high. So I highly suggest that. So I want to go into some, here's, you know, there are a million recipes to make butter, and my time is growing short here. People are looking at me getting angry and everything. Okay, so anyway, I'm gonna skip how to make butter, but there are so many recipes on the internet that's not really a problem. But once again, I strongly advise that you really portion control any edibles so that people just don't go overboard with it. Especially, you know, you might have people at a party, and some of them might understand that when one portion is 25 milligrams, that they shouldn't eat 5 portions, perhaps. And a person who doesn't understand what 25, well, that's really small, 25 milligrams, you know, it's a fraction of a gram, what can it do, right? So some people might not realize that, so it's your duty to help them by making sure that they have a pleasant rather than an unpleasant experience. Now I want to talk about something that isn't really on here, and that is tinctures. Does anybody here use tinctures? I love tinctures. You know, I was with the president of California Normal one day, and I said, you know, I went to the movies, and this movie was so good that an hour into the movie, I got high. And he said, you didn't get high in a movie theater, did you? And I said, yeah, and not only that, I passed it down to my friends. And, you know, he was aghast, you know? And then I pulled out the tincture. And that's how great tinctures are. And the reason tinctures are so good and are unlike any other edible, it's this. Remember I said when you eat something, it goes into your stomach and it gets converted into a different form of THC that feels a little different than when you inhale it, right? But tinctures don't go through your stomach. You put them on sublingually on the base of your tongue, and all this mucous membranes in your lining here, they absorb it, and it goes directly into the bloodstream and directly into your brain. So it's not quite as fast, but it's every bit as effective as smoking it, and it's the same high as smoking it, and it has that same peak and comes down and everything. And you could go into a police station and use it, and they wouldn't know it. Oh, I'm taking my medicine. You know, and so I highly recommend those tinctures. Now, let's say you were traveling to a foreign country and you didn't know whether you were going to get some pot right away. So I have a suggestion for you. They have these caps, all kinds of caps, like golden caps of all sorts. Just take those caps, but don't swallow them. Break them in your mouth, and let that oil go through your, so you get into your body through the sublingual method. Nobody will ever know it. So any questions? Yes. Turn on. Hi. Hey, you have to put that on.
Hi, and I make t-shirts for a living.
What?
I make t-shirts for a living. So I just had a question on temperature for you.
Yes.
try to keep it at 150 to 165.
Which?
Underneath that, when I'm preparing the tincture.
You don't necessarily have to use heat.
Sure, you can use the sit method, but the stores don't really like to wait that long.
Well, once you get the process going,
Right.
like even if it takes an extra 2 weeks, then you'll have a steady supply and it will be a better quality. You know,
So you prefer the sit so method?
yeah, I think that it would be better to retain all of the terpenes.
Okay, so for the heat process, I'll use terpenes.
Well, as soon as you use heat, the terpenes are going to evaporate.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Okay, thank you very much.